24th of September this year, more than 700 Muslims were stomped to death during a religious practice called the Hajj. It was in Saudi Arabia, more specifically it was in Mecca, and unfortunately it's not the first time that these stompings have happened or that people have died during the Hajj. So my question for this speech will be, why do Muslims keep coming back to Mecca in order to do the Hajj, and why do they keep risking their lives? And so I'll be examining the Hajj and why these stompings they tend to happen. So my theory, what I believe is that the Muslims, they keep coming back to Mecca to practice this Hajj and to do it because it is one of the requirements of a devout Muslim. So that is a way for them to show that they're devoted to Islam and to Allah. So during this speech I will be going through the facts regarding the Hajj, and I'll be going through the result of the Hajj. Then I'll go a little bit about what are the steps of the Hajj, what do they actually do, and then finally I'll sum it up with what are some of the challenges that come into controlling that many people, so crowd control, and some of the reasons why all these accidents happen. So to begin with, I will go through some of the facts in regards to the Hajj. And the Hajj happens in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca, as I said. It is a pilgrimage, an Islamic pilgrimage, and between 2 to 3 million Muslims, they complete the Hajj each year. Most of them are Sunni Muslims, and the only reason why Muslims should not be doing the Hajj would be because they're financially unable to do it, or they're physically unable to do it. So according to Muslim faith, the Hajj is the last pillar in their faith that a Muslim should accomplish during their lifetime. So the 4 other pillars will be the declaration of faith, and it will be the daily prayers. They pray 5 times a day. It will be the charity called the zakat, where they give between 2.5 and 5% of their income to the poor. Then the 4th one is the fast, which we also know as the Ramadan. So these are some of the practices, the 4 practices that most Muslims they continue to do each year, each day. But the Ramadan is then the once in a lifetime practice that are required of them. However, it's actually a really low percentage of Muslims that do it. The Hajj is actually loosely described in the Quran, and the reason why that is important is because it sets a certain time of year that it's supposed to be done, and that's why this year it was in September. So the desired outcome of the Hajj is an important thing to look at because, like most other religions, the practices have a desired outcome. So the reason why Muslims they do the Hajj is because it's a cleansing. It's seen as a way to cleanse themselves from sin, and Muslims believe that doing the Hajj will also cleanse them from sin. And what a lot of Muslims they describe their life as past the Hajj is that they've become a new person, they've been reborn, and they often find themselves more devout than ever and more serious in regards to their faith. And we can liken it a lot to the Amish baptism. The Amish people, when they have children, they raise their children in the Amish faith, but they don't expect them to necessarily do all the practices until they're actually baptized. So they go through a year that's called Umspringen, which is the spring year where the teenagers are allowed to experience the world, and they're expecting a lot of them to actually come back after a year of experiencing the world, devoting themselves to the Amish lifestyle, and putting behind them the world. So in the same way, the Hajj is, until the Hajj has happened, a Muslim is not necessarily required to be as devout as they are after and past the Hajj. So some of the steps of the Hajj that are important to look at are how they, as I said, people they come from everywhere in the world to Mecca in order to complete the Hajj. So when people they come into Mecca, they typically stay in the outskirts of Mecca, the city, and that's where they start dressing up and getting ready for the cleansing. So they put on seamless clothes that is white, and then they go into Mecca the to do the tawaf. So there's the Kaaba, which is the black stone, and there's a meteor in it, and there's a lot more than that, but I won't describe that right now. But they're going to do the tawaf, which is 7 walks around. So they go around the Kaaba 7 times, and when they're done with that, they go to the Kaaba, they touch it, or they bow to it, or they kiss it. When they're done with that, they go outside and they do 7 runs between 2 of the hills outside of the Kaaba, and that's in remembrance of Hagar, which she's also in the Bible, but how she was searching for water for her child Ishmael. The day after that, they go to Arafat, and where they stay and pray during the day. And the day after that, they go to a city called Mina, where they do the feast of sacrifice, and they sacrifice an animal, and they throw rocks at the pillars in order to, which represents the devil and sin. So they throw rocks at sin and throw rocks at the devil. So that's where the actual cleaning takes place. And then the last day of the Hajj, they return to Mecca and repeat the tawaf, where they walk around the Kaaba. And after that, most Muslims, especially the men, they'll shave their beards, they'll cut their hair short, and then everything after that will be a clean life. So the reason why I wanted to talk about crowd control and why there's a risk in doing the Hajj is because there's so many people. And what tends to happen is that if an accident happens, people start to panic, and then all of a sudden you have a catastrophe at hand. And some of the challenges in crowd control is that there's so many people at the same place. As I said, there's 2 to 3 million people doing the Hajj each year. Now, a lot of these people don't speak the same language, so they're internationals coming from everywhere, and the clothing that they're wearing does not allow them to have pockets, which means that they don't have anywhere to put identification or medical records, anything like that. So, the 24th of September this year, 717 people